Hi, I'm John DeBella from Classic Rock 102.9 MGK here for PhillyPetInfo.com, and here with me is Jim Crosby, and Jim is here because of the fine folks at a New Jersey Aid for Animals. He is in town, and he is an out-and-out authority on dogs, and really the thing that you know the most about, more than anyone I've ever encountered, is dog behavior as it pertains to dogs, people, and their mouths.
Yep.
Right? Dog biting.
People and dogs get themselves in trouble with their mouths all the time. As a police officer, I used to deal with that on a regular basis.
As a disc jockey, I deal with it on a daily basis. I've always said something that someone is ticked off about.
But then you're doing your job.
Well, yeah, I guess so. What are the biggest myths about people, dogs, and dog biting?
Well, the first myth is that the dog bit for no reason. No, it didn't. You just aren't smart enough to have been watching for the signals. Or the dog bit with no warning. No, because when you look at dog bites and you look at dog interaction with each other and with humans, there's a lot of signaling that goes back and forth. We may not recognize it, and no, it's not whispering. It's not, ooh, I'm communicating with the dog. It used to be a princess. No, it's body language, and anybody can learn to watch it. And by paying attention to what your dog's trying to tell you, you can avoid huge problems.
Now, I remember growing up hearing these terrible stories about Doberman pinschers who just, for no reason at all, attack their owner, right? Are there dogs that are more prone to being biters than others?
Yeah, dogs that are not socialized, have not become part of a family, and who are frightened. As far as breeds of dogs, no, there is one inherently vicious breed, and it's got 2 legs. However, when it comes to dogs, overall they have different personalities, but individual differences are far more than appearance-based assumptions. And so there's not a single breed that, for instance, like they said, Dobermans go off with no warning. No, they don't. They're giving you warning. You're just not picking up on your dog's signals. You're not listening. And any dog has teeth, and any dog can bite. If they don't have teeth, they can just gum you to death. But any dog can bite. And teeth are part of what makes a dog a dog. It works for their fingers. It works for their lips. It works for picking up stuff and moving it. It's part of their communication system. So they have a lot of control and a lot of uses for their mouth. It replaces our hands and thumbs.
Is there something that would let people know that this dog is going to bite, even if the dog isn't a biter? Is there? Can you look at the dog and say, "Uh-oh, this is going to happen"?
Sure. For instance, we have people all the time, and it happens especially with kids, where you see a dog sitting back against a wall or in a corner, and it's kind of got its eyes open, it's kind of leaning back. That's not a dog that needs a hug. That's a dog that's frightened. And when a dog is frightened and it can't get away from you, it only has one resort, and that's to use its teeth to try to communicate with you, to warn you, to tell you, he can't put his hands out in front of him, to tell you, dude, back off a little bit, you're worrying me, I don't know you, you're not my friend yet, we have chances, but I'm nervous here, so just take a step back. Looking at that kind of body language, watching for hackles coming up and the teeth bared, giving a growl. A growl isn't bad behavior. It's a warning that something's going on I'm not comfortable with, and I really don't want you coming any closer. That's a big thing to remember, is that dogs that are stressed, dogs that are fearful, the biggest thing they want is space. Not permanently, just for right now. We have a body distance that we're comfortable with, and I suddenly come in front of you, and no matter the fact we've been talking here, you're at least a little bit uncomfortable. As a retired cop, I have a pretty good bubble around me because for years and years that's the way I stayed alive. Dogs have the same thing. So if you get too close until they're comfortable with you, you don't go up and give a dog a hug, and you don't put your face in their smushy face and then be surprised when the dog goes off and bites you. You kind of bought that one.
Now, look, there are a lot of people out there who are animal lovers, and especially dog lovers, and especially with dogs, you're going to see them out on the street. You have these stray animals, and people will go up to them, and they're going to save that dog. Something tells me that just walking up to an animal on the street that you don't know might not be the safest thing for one to do.
Yeah, the clue phone's ringing there. That's not the safest thing. And whether it's with a dog on the street or even if you go over to your friend's house and they've got a dog, the safest thing to do is not to go up and play smushy face, but it's to keep a neutral stance and let the dog approach you. Let it make the first contact, because that contact is way more likely to be positive than if you worry the dog. If the dog feels like it's safe for you to him to come up, then he's going to be far more relaxed. If you're making that decision for him, he doesn't have the opportunity. So if you have to approach and deal with whether it's a dog on the street or a dog at your friend's house, let the dog come up to you. Try to entice him over. Maybe if you're trying to catch one, actually, have some treats or something. Mm-hmm. Make it worthwhile. If you are close to it and it's starting to get to know you, don't move suddenly. And don't do this. Now, if I do this to you for a little while, how much fun are you having?
I hated it at tap one.
Guy. Dogs don't like that. And we have to tell that to kids. And what I do in classes with kids is I'll do the same thing I just did with you and tap them on the head, but for longer until they really get annoyed and say, now, how much fun was that? If you didn't enjoy it, don't do it to your dog. First contact for safety, on the shoulder, on the back behind the head, on non-threatening places where it feels good, instead of doing this nonsense. Or the stupid move that people do, reaching right into the dog's face. Now, when it comes to that, people can teach their kids a lot in one simple lesson. If you look at the ends of your hands, there are pepperonis on the ends. Those are sausages. Quick bite. It can go as far as being what we call a gloving injury, where it pulls the tissue right off. Even a little dog can do a lot of damage. So instead, because dogs don't have, hopefully, the social baggage we have, stick out a closed hand. Thumb wrapped in, fingers in. Even a big dog, if it gets panicked and snaps, it's going to scratch the back of your knuckles and it's not going to be a big deal. Kids especially, give a hand. They need something to sniff. Don't get into their space. Let the dog come up and sniff the back of your hand. A lot safer.
Now, you've mentioned kids a number of times, and when you say kids, I'm also thinking in the same category, elderly people, because the older we get, the more we become like we were.
Yeah.
Right? So what about dog biting kids? What do you teach your kids? What do you remind elderly people about being with dogs, playing with dogs, getting a dog?
Well, one of the things we see is that, for instance, part of what I do is I've investigated fatal attacks on humans all over the United States and consulted on attacks around the world, and I've actually done more of them than anybody else, period. Our victims very often are kids. Most of them are kids under 12, most of those under 6, and elderly people. 2 reasons. Kids, because kids are at face level. So if a dog gets scared and bites, it may grab the face, it may grab the neck. There's a lot of damage you can do. Kids are also physically smaller. The amount of bite from a big dog that you or I could take versus what a 3-year-old can take, even though it was the same sized bite, is going to do a heck of a lot more damage to that 3-year-old than to you or me. I mean, we've got extra spots to grab on, and we're going to absorb.
I've got a lot of extra spots.
We're going to absorb a lot of punishment. Elderly people, it's primarily because we're both sneaking up on it, but when you get to a certain age, you can't absorb the damage you could. I mean, I can't take now what I could at 25. They may have health issues. They're usually not as strong and can't physically repel a dog. And they might be on blood thinner medications or something else. So that's where our serious injuries happen, and that translates to the fact that those are our most at-risk populations. Very rarely does a healthy adult with no drug problems or impairment or medical issues get killed by a dog. And then it's a massive issue, and nobody could have survived it.
He is Jim Crosby, and he has endless amounts of information. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you a whole series of Jim Crosby. So stay there. Hang in. Wait. There'll be another video soon. I'm John DeBella from Classic Rock 102.9 MGK for PhillyPetInfo.com.